Hello friends, welcome to another Fire Emblem discussion. Today we're going to look at comments from yesterday's video because we had a lot of good things coming from you guys and I'd love to respond to it. So first, we're going to look at comment from Metal Gear Lamia, who says, I like the atmosphere of this comment section. It's nice to see different opinions that aren't negative. For once, at least if you don't dwell deep in certain territories, keep up the great videos. As for my thoughts. So first off, thank you very much. I really appreciate it. That was my whole goal in this channel. I want to create a community where people can share their opinions without being super negative about everything. It's okay if we can disagree with each other, but I really want to keep this a positive, happy environment. So thank you for recognizing that and pointing that out. Thank you so much. And now on to your actual comment. You say, I can't say if Byleth will be a primary or secondary character since we know nothing yet, but I'll just say make him interesting and fleshed out. They have so much potential with him that they can go many ways with. Personally, a Persona Rat would be an awesome idea, especially if I can select how supports go through different answers, potentially to some going to S, so much replay value there. So that brings up an interesting thing that I've been thinking about recently actually with the Avatar, where in Fates, actually I can't even, in Fate, really? I'm trying to think. I don't know. In Awakening, you're given choices that don't matter. If you pick one, the same thing, like whatever you pick, the same thing just still happens. The only important choice you make in Fates is at the very beginning, in Chapter 6. So I would love more choices and things that affect the outcome of the game, where you can even get multiple endings and stuff like that. I'd really appreciate that. So I like that idea, and I hope that they go that route. So that is something that I want to mention, that if Byleth is a really major important character who is an avatar, I want my choices to matter as a player so that I feel like Byleth, rather than I am supposed to be Corrin or I'm supposed to be Robin, but they have all their own thoughts and opinions and mine doesn't matter. So that's, I really like that idea. And moving on from there, they continue to say, another Lynn Hector Elowood mode is very interesting, but as I see many concerns, mine included, I hope Adelgard won't get the Lynn treatment or what some of the female main characters overall get, where she's an afterthought in the story if she gets a starting focus at the beginning. So I agree with that too, and I think that's really interesting. But my ideal situation is not a Adelgard tutorial mode. I hope we don't get that. I was just saying that could happen, and I really hope that we get a fully fleshed out story mode for Adelgard and for each separate main character, being Adelgard, Claude, and Dimitri. I hope that we get that, and that Adelgard doesn't get pushed aside, because we have seen that. We have seen that with like Micaiah, who gets pushed aside by Ike in many instances. We have that with Celica, who has to be saved by we see that with Erica. Even if you play her route, in the end, Ephraim is there to save the day and all that stuff. So I really hope that Adelgard doesn't get pushed aside, and that she is also she stays majorly important throughout the entire campaign. So I appreciate that comment, and I really hope that happens. So let's move on to Brave Lady Lynn. I have to disagree with you about a lesser role for Byleth. He was stated to be a main character / protagonist in the official summary, so that likely won't happen. But at that point for me, he shouldn't be there at all if I don't feel important enough to the overall narrative. That's why I dislike when people bring up Mark, since they don't feel like me, or what I would do if I was in the game. Also, I don't think they should give the free roam aspect to a secondary character. So Mark, you're right, doesn't play much of a role. And ideally they would build upon that. It wouldn't just be Mark 2.0 where he's a unit you can use in battle, but he would be akin, like my ideal situation is to have a character akin to, say, like a character akin to Tobin or Gray or May or Bowie in Echoes, where they have a voice throughout the story and they have a really good chemistry with the main character, but they don't overshadow the main character and they don't take any spotlight from them, but we still hear their opinion often, and they're still a very important character throughout the story. Even if they start to be a little less important towards the end, they could fix that and make them important throughout, but it could just be someone to interact with for the main character rather than the main character itself. And that's my thought, but I appreciate your comment. Thank you so much. Alright, so next we have Absol112, who says, while I agree with the sentiment about Marcus, I doubt they'll do that. Sure, Marcus, Seth, and Titania are exceptional Jagan examples. Most still are powerful, or at least useful if not for the whole game. Then at least half of it. That doesn't make it right, it's just a thing that happens. And you're right, it's FE tradition, and I agree with you that we probably are going to get a Jagan character. But after I made yesterday's video, I was thinking about Fates, actually, and how really you don't get much of a Jagan character. I mean, in Revelation, you get Gunther, who is crap and is just a bad character. he's so bad in that game. And then you get Jacob or Felicia. So Felicia just ends up being a staff bot. She has a really good magic stat and uses the flame shuriken really well, which you get a few chapters in, which can be useful. And then you could do some class changing shenanigans with a heart seal or friendship seals and all that different stuff. But overall, she's not that impressive of a unit, and really just ends up being a stat backpack for Corrin most of the time because of her personal skill. Same could be said for Jacob, except if you do want to use the early game heart seal on him to make him a paladin, he can be pretty strong and quite useful. But then again, you have to use that early game heart seal, and it's a sacrifice rather than just out of the box. He's a really amazing unit. So I don't think a Jagan character has to be in the game, and I don't think we've really had a true Jagan character in every single Fire Emblem title. Looking at FE4, I mean, you could kind of say Quan is kind of a Jagan even, but I guess Sigurd's so good that it doesn't matter. And then looking at Echoes, I mean, Lucas is kind of your Jagan, but even then, Alm is just as good, if not better than him, right from the get-go. And all the villagers become as good as Lucas within the first few battles, because once they promote, their bases skyrocket to normal bases. Especially if you choose, like, I don't know, Mercenary Gray. He's, like, better than Lucas at that point. So, while I do agree that Jagans are basically just Fire Emblem tradition at this point, I don't think that they have to be there, and there has been examples where there haven't been. And I think Three Houses, hopefully, could take from this and not have a Jagan character. But we'll see. Next, we have an interesting comment from Ninja Bunny, who says, "My ideal version of Three Houses that I've cooked up in my head is a lot closer to Radiant Dawn than Blazing Blade. I personally want a game where Byleth acts as the tactician for the 3 different armies of each house," which, logistically, how does that work? I would be interested in that, but I like where he goes with this idea, and that each house is at war with each other, so Byleth is constantly going back and forth from each army. And the main challenge comes in that your opponents are your other 2 armies, which sounds super dope to me. I love the idea of changing armies in Radiant Dawn and then fighting your own characters. I wish they would have done more of that. If it would have been balanced better, they could have done that better, because the Dawn Brigade is so cruddy and they just aren't very good. Leading up to part 3, chapter 6, where you fight the Lugu's Alliance. I wish you could have fought like Ike, Soren, the actual Grail mercenaries, rather than just random Lugu's units. But they had to do that because the Dawn Brigade, in terms of levels at that point, will be so far behind the Grail mercenaries. So I understand why they did it. And then you don't really face the Grail mercenaries off as you don't face the Grail mercenaries as the Dawn Brigade until like chapter 12, I think, 12 or 13. I think it's 12. But I did like the parts where as the Grail mercenaries you did fight the Dawn Brigade characters, which, you basically just run them over unless you are leveling, unless you're grinding experience by abusing like priests and stuff like that, and boss abuse and stuff like that. Or if you just like load stat boosters onto like Jill or something, then she's just going to be good anyways, which I personally like to do. I think Jill's a really good character. It's one of my favorite characters in that game. Anyways, different game. But I really love the idea of a Radiant Dawn inspired Three Houses. I don't know if we'll get it, but for your sake and my, Ninja Buddy, I hope it happens, because that'd be super dope. Okay. Got a couple more comments to go through. If you're still here, good for you, and I promise I'm getting to you if I haven't yet. So next, we have Water Goddess Azura, who says, "Honestly, if they go that route, I feel people want to S-rank their waifu Bando. If it isn't any of the 3 main characters, it could potentially be a nightmare, lol. There likely will still be grinding to get some support points through different methods, so I guess it won't be so bad, lol. I don't think they'll downgrade Byleth's role to Mark. I'm leaning towards him being the absolute main character of the game that decides the game's fate, by which of the other main characters you decide to go with first. That'll affect major outcomes." Oh, that was hard for me to read, and I don't know why. Anyways, we've kind of talked about this already. I think it's interesting that Byleth, the idea of Byleth being the main character scares me because it hasn't been handled well in the past. But it's okay with me if it's handled well. Again, if Byleth isn't this all-knowing essentially, if Byleth isn't a Mary Sue, and also if Byleth isn't like, I don't know. But anyway, Water Goddess Azura, thanks for your comment. I appreciate it. And you're probably right. He probably will just be the outright main character. If not, he'll be a secondary main character akin to Robin. Next, we move on to Entermaid the Elegant, who says, got to agree with Brave Lady Lynn here. Who would get the very important sword in the game? And I assume you're referring to the like rusty old sword that the green-haired chick is holding and like hugging for some reason in the trailer. And also, it honestly looks like the same sword that the scary buff old man is using to wipe out like an entire army with one swing. Yeah, who would get that? And he goes on to say, since Adelgard, Dimitri, and Claude will likely get their own unique legendary weapons from their houses. And he says, I get Yato 2.0 vibes from it too, and you either need all the crest or the three house weapons to awaken it back to its powerful state. Also, Fire Emblem taught me that main characters are mostly primary sword users. So I think a lot of you are leaning the same way, that Byleth is going to be the main character, and that he will eventually wield this important sword we know nothing about yet. And I do like, I see the idea you're getting about, being like Yato 2.0, because the Yato had to interact with the different legendary weapons of each of Corrin's, siblings, each of Corrin's brothers' legendary weapons to evolve into like the Shadow Yato, the Grim Yato, Alpha Yato, all those. And I think that there's a good chance of that happening because it's an RPG trope, powering up and leveling up swords and whatever ancient mystical fantasy things. It's bound to happen. I agree with you. Okay, finally got 2 more comments I want to take a look at. Again, thank you for everyone who's commented. Last, I want to take a look at Jugger.drops. Actually, first we'll look at Splatoon Blamir, who says, I don't know, man. You're playing that Octopath music. I remember Cyrus is one of the protagonists with a similar role as Byleth. Even the coat sleeve thing is on point. Pretty funny. I love Octopath and the music is so good. And Jugger.drop says, that's some good point of views. And he says, also, you need more subs. Good video. And you know what? Jugger.drops, I agree with you. I need more subs, dang it. So if you aren't subbed to Fire Emblem Discussion, make sure to do that. You're missing out. I post daily videos, except for Sunday. I don't post on Sunday. Day off for all that stuff. But I post every other day of the week. I stream sometimes. I do some good stuff. So you make sure to subscribe for some really good discussions you can have in the comments. If you post something good, I'll mention you in a video and we'll talk about it. It'll be great. So make sure to like, comment your thoughts on the video, and subscribe for more Fire Emblem discussion.